My name is Carlton Briggs, and I am 63 years old. Last Tuesday morning, I pulled into my daughter's driveway in Charlotte after a 5-hour drive from our home in Savannah, and the first thing I saw was a man I'd never met running across the front yard waving both arms over his head. "Don't go inside," he shouted. "I already called 911. Something is very wrong in that house." Before you hear the rest of this story, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. And please like and subscribe if you've ever learned that the person you trusted most was the one you should have feared. My wife Marlene had gone to Charlotte 4 days earlier. Our daughter Janelle had called crying, said she'd just had a terrible fight with her husband Spencer and needed her mother. Marlene packed a bag that same night. She kissed me on the forehead and said she'd be back by the weekend. That was the last normal moment of my life. I hadn't planned on driving up. Marlene told me to stay home, said it was a mother-daughter thing. But something about our last phone call kept gnawing at me. Her voice had changed. It was tight, careful, like she was choosing every word. "Everything's fine, Carlton. Just some marriage stuff. I'll handle it." She didn't sound fine. She sounded afraid. So I got in my truck at 5 in the morning and drove. I didn't call ahead. I wanted to see for myself. The man who stopped me was broad-shouldered, maybe 70, with close-cropped gray hair and reading glasses pushed up on his forehead. He had the look of someone who'd spent his whole life paying attention. His name was Dwight Hollins, retired postal carrier. 31 years delivering mail in the same neighborhood, he'd tell me later. He knew every house, every family, every secret that a mailbox could hold. "Sir, you cannot go in there," he said, gripping my arm. I heard screaming 10 minutes ago, a woman screaming. Then something heavy hit the floor and it went quiet. Too quiet. My heart was slamming against my ribs. "That's my daughter's house. My wife is in there, Marlene." "I know who lives there," Dwight said. "That's why I'm telling you to wait." The ambulance arrived first, then 2 police cruisers right behind it. The officers went in through the front door. I pushed past Dwight and followed them. I didn't care what anyone said. My wife was in that house. The kitchen was destroyed. A chair was on its side. A ceramic bowl was shattered across the tile. Coffee was still dripping off the edge of the counter. And there on the living room floor, just past the kitchen doorway, was my wife. Marlene was lying on her side, her body limp, her eyes half open but seeing nothing. A thin line of vomit trailed from the corner of her mouth. Next to her was an overturned cup of tea, the dark liquid pooling on the hardwood. I dropped to my knees beside her. "Marlene, baby, I'm here, wake up." "She's breathing," one of the paramedics said, pressing his fingers to her neck. "Pulse is there, but it's slow, way too slow." "Ma'am, can you hear me?" She didn't respond. They loaded her onto a stretcher. Someone said the word toxicology. Someone else said possible overdose. I stood there feeling the floor tilt under my feet. Then I heard my daughter. She was upstairs on the landing, sitting on the carpet with her back against the wall, sobbing. She looked like a child, her knees pulled up, mascara streaked down her face. She pointed past me toward the back porch. "It was Spencer," she cried. "He put something in her tea. I saw him. He's been trying to get rid of her ever since she got here. He didn't want her finding out about the money." I looked toward the back porch. The glass slider was open. Spencer was sitting on the steps outside, his head in his hands. A uniformed officer was already standing over him. When Spencer looked up, I saw a long red welt across his jaw and a bruise darkening under his left eye. "She was going to tell you," Spencer said, his voice hoarse. "Janelle, she was going to." But his words were swallowed by Janelle's screams. "Liar. He's a liar, Dad. He poisoned Mom. He's been stealing from us for months. He did this." I believed my daughter. Of course I believed her. I am her father. And Spencer, that quiet, pale man she'd married 3 years ago, he had always made me uneasy. Not because he was a bad person, exactly. I just never understood him. He was an accountant for a small firm in Charlotte, drove a modest car, wore clothes that looked like they came from a catalog. He was so quiet at family dinners that I sometimes forgot he was in the room. I'd ask him a question and he'd think about it for 10 seconds before answering, like every word cost him money. Marlene said he was thoughtful. I thought he was hiding something. That's a different thing. They took Marlene to the hospital. I rode with Janelle. Spencer went in the back of a police car. At the hospital, the doctor told me Marlene had ingested a significant amount of a sedative, a benzodiazepine. He used the brand name, but I don't remember it. What I remember is his face when he said the words, "if she'd been left much longer." They pumped her stomach. They put her on fluids. She was alive, but she wasn't waking up. I sat in that waiting room for 9 hours. The fluorescent lights buzzed. The coffee tasted like hot water that had given up on life. Janelle sat next to me, crying softly, clutching a handful of tissues. "Dad," she whispered, "I have to tell you something. Spencer, he's been taking money out of our accounts. I found out 2 weeks ago, $30,000. Gone. I think he's got a woman on the side." I confronted him and he lost it. When Mom came to stay, she started asking questions about the finances. She saw the bank statements on his desk. He must have panicked. He must have put something in her tea so she'd be too out of it to tell anyone. It made perfect sense. The quiet man with the careful answers. The man who always seemed to be calculating something. He wasn't thoughtful. He was a thief. A detective came by that evening. His name was Rojas. He was young, sharp-eyed, and he didn't waste words. He talked to Janelle first, then came to me. "Mr. Briggs, your son-in-law is being cooperative. Almost too cooperative, honestly. He's insisting your daughter is the one who put the sedative in your wife's tea." I stood up so fast the plastic chair screeched on the floor. "That's a lie. My daughter wouldn't." He held up a hand. "I'm just telling you what he's saying. He also says your daughter has a prescription for the same medication found in your wife's system, clonazepam." Janelle took my arm. "That's for my anxiety, Dad. He must have taken my pills and crushed them into her tea. He had access. He knew where I kept them." Rojas looked at her for a long beat, then he nodded and left. 2 days later, Marlene still hadn't fully woken up. She was drifting, half-conscious, mumbling things that didn't connect. The doctor said the sedative dose was heavy. It would take time. I went back to Janelle's house to pick up some of Marlene's things. Her robe, her slippers, her reading glasses, simple things that might comfort her when she came to. As I was walking out the front door, I saw Dwight. He was standing on his porch watching me the way he'd watched me that first morning. Like he had something to say and wasn't sure I was ready to hear it. He crossed the yard. "Mr. Briggs, I need to talk to you," I sighed. "Mr. Hollins, I appreciate what you did calling 911. You probably saved my wife's life. But I'm tired and I need to get back to the hospital." "Sir," he said, and his voice had a weight to it that stopped me. "I've been delivering mail on this street for 31 years. I retired 2 years ago, but I still know this neighborhood better than I know my own family. I know what comes to every mailbox. I know who orders what. I know which houses get the bills and which ones get the collection notices." I waited. "Your daughter," he said carefully. "She gets a lot of packages. Every day, sometimes 2-3 deliveries, different carriers. I see them from my window. And she gets letters from the kind of places you don't want letters from. Finance companies, collection agencies. I've seen the envelopes, red print, final notice." I shook my head. "That's Spencer. He's been stealing money." Dwight looked at me with an expression I will never forget. It was pity mixed with patience. "Mr. Briggs, your son-in-law leaves for work at 7:15 every morning. The packages arrive between 10 and 2, every single day. She's home. He's not. And I'll tell you something else. The morning your wife collapsed, I was trimming my hedges right along that fence. My kitchen window faces your daughter's kitchen. I heard them arguing. I gripped the bag in my hand. Arguing about what? Your wife was upset," he said. "She was saying, 'Janelle, this has to stop. You're going to lose everything.' And your daughter, she was loud. She was saying, 'You don't understand. You don't know what it's like. Just give me the money and I'll fix it.' Then it got quiet. Real quiet. And then about 10 minutes later, I heard the crash, your wife hitting the floor." "Where was Spencer during all this?" Dwight looked me in the eye. "Spencer wasn't home, Mr. Briggs. He left for work at 7:15 like he always does. I watched him pull out of the driveway. He didn't come back until almost noon. By then the ambulance was already there. He came running up the street. He looked like he was going to be sick. That man didn't know what had happened until he saw the stretcher. The world went sideways. I leaned against the door frame. That's not what Janelle said. She said she saw him put something in the tea. I know what she said, sir. And I'm telling you what I saw. He wasn't there. I drove to the hospital in a fog. I sat in the parking lot for 20 minutes. I couldn't go inside. I couldn't face Marlene. I couldn't face my daughter. Because if Dwight was right, then everything Janelle had told me was a lie. And the man sitting in a holding cell was innocent, and my daughter, my baby girl, had poisoned her own mother. I did something I'm not proud of. I called a lawyer I knew, a woman named Katrina Vega. I told her I needed help sorting out my daughter's finances, protecting her assets while her husband was under investigation. Katrina didn't ask too many questions. She was efficient. She was cold. She was exactly what I needed. I got Janelle to sign a financial power of attorney. She signed it without reading it. She trusted me completely. That trust felt like a knife in my ribs. She called me on a Thursday morning. "Carlton, come to my office. Don't bring your daughter." She laid it out on her desk. Bank statements, credit card records, online transaction histories. $30,000 missing from the joint account. But it wasn't Spencer. Every single transaction traced back to Janelle's personal devices. Her phone, her laptop, online shopping sites, clothing, handbags, jewelry, home decor, thousands of dollars at a time. She had 3 credit cards Spencer didn't know about, all maxed out. Total debt across all accounts was closer to $70,000. "Carlton," Katrina said, her voice flat, "your son-in-law has been quietly depositing money into the joint account from his own savings for the past year and a half. He's been covering for her. He put in almost $40,000 of his own money to keep the mortgage current. He's not stealing, he's been subsidizing her compulsion." I put my head in my hands. The room hummed. The air tasted like metal. "There's more," she said. "Your daughter filed a fraudulent insurance claim 6 months ago. Reported a burglary that never happened. She collected $12,000. I could not speak. And there's one more thing. It's about your wife." I looked up. "When I pulled your wife's financial records as part of the family review, I found something. Your wife, Marlene, has a separate brokerage account. It's been open for 17 years. Current value is just over $900,000. The number didn't register. It was absurd. Marlene and I had lived modestly our entire lives. I was a retired fire captain. She was a retired school librarian. We drove a 12-year-old truck. We argued about whether we could afford to replace the gutters. "Where did it come from?" I whispered. Her sister, Katrina, said. "Loretta, the one who passed in 2007, left Marlene the proceeds of a life insurance policy. Marlene invested it and never touched it. Why would she hide that from me?" "That I can't answer, Carlton. But I can tell you this. 3 weeks ago, Marlene updated her trust documents. She removed your daughter as the primary beneficiary. She redirected the entire account to a charitable foundation for compulsive spending and debt recovery. The pieces fell into place with the sound of something breaking inside my chest. Marlene had come to Charlotte not because of a marital fight. She came because she had discovered what Janelle was doing. She came to confront her. And when Janelle found out about the trust, about $900,000 she believed was hers being given to strangers, she had put pills in her mother's tea. I drove to the hospital. Marlene was awake, barely, but awake. Her eyes found mine, and they were full of something I had never seen in 40 years of marriage: fear. I sent Janelle to get food. It took some convincing. She didn't want to leave the room. She'd been whispering to Marlene, stroking her hair, telling her Spencer was locked up, that she was safe now. I watched Marlene's face while Janelle spoke. I watched the heart rate monitor. When Janelle said Spencer's name, the number climbed. Not much, just enough for a man who was paying attention. When we were alone, I took Marlene's hand. "Marlene," I said, I know about the money. I know about the trust. I know about the shopping, the debt, the insurance fraud. I know Spencer was trying to help. Just tell me what happened that morning." She closed her eyes. Tears ran down her temples into the pillow. Her voice was a whisper, so thin I had to press my ear to her lips. "She found the trust papers in my suitcase," Marlene breathed, "while I was in the shower. When I came downstairs, she was holding them. She was so angry, Carlton. I've never seen her like that. She said I was stealing her future. She said that money was hers. I told her it wasn't about punishment. I told her I wanted to get her help. I told her the money would fund programs for people like her, people who can't stop. What did she do? She made me tea." Her voice broke. "She made me tea and she told me she was sorry. She said she'd think about getting help. She said, 'Let's just sit and talk, Mom, like we used to.' So I drank the tea. And then the room started spinning, and I couldn't move my arms. And she was standing over me, and she was saying, 'You're going to call your lawyer, Mom. You're going to change it back.' And I couldn't speak. I couldn't move. I just fell." "Where was Spencer?" "He wasn't home," Marlene whispered. "He was at work. He didn't know, Carlton. He's been trying to get her into treatment for a year. He's been paying off her debts with his own money. He begged me to help when I got here. He said he couldn't do it alone anymore." The hall was empty when I walked out of Marlene's room. I stood there breathing. My hands were shaking. That tremor started the morning I found my wife on the floor, and it has never fully stopped. Then the elevator doors opened and Janelle stepped out holding a cup of coffee and a sandwich. She smiled when she saw me, that practiced, perfect, wounded daughter smile. "Dad, is she okay? Did she say anything?" I looked at her. I let the silence stretch until her smile cracked. "She told me everything, Janelle." The transformation was instantaneous. The softness left her face. Her eyes went flat and hard like someone had flipped a switch. She didn't cry. She didn't crumble. She laughed. A short, sharp sound that made my blood run cold. "She told you everything. Dad, the woman was drugged. She's confused. She doesn't know what she's saying. The doctor said she'd be disoriented." "She wasn't disoriented," I said. "She was the clearest I've ever heard her." Janelle stepped closer. "Let me ask you something, Dad. Your wife just admitted she hid $900,000 from you for 17 years. 17 years, while you were worrying about the roof, while you were counting pennies on your pension. She watched you struggle and she said nothing. She's a liar, a professional, practiced liar. And you believe her over me? Your daughter? Your blood?" The words hit exactly where she aimed them. Because she was right about one thing. Marlene had lied to me. For 17 years she had sat across from me at that kitchen table and watched me stress about money, and she had said nothing. The betrayal was real and it burned. But I looked at my daughter's face, that cold, calculating face, and I saw something I couldn't unsee. I saw a stranger. I saw a woman who had just tried to use my wounded pride as a weapon against my wife. And I thought about Dwight Hollins standing on his porch, a man with no reason to lie. Spencer wasn't home. He left at 7:15. And I thought about Spencer in that holding cell, the quiet man who had been secretly pouring his own savings into a hole my daughter kept digging. The man I dismissed as weak, as hiding something. He was hiding something. He was hiding my daughter's sickness to protect us from the truth. "I believe my wife," I said. The mask shattered. Janelle's face twisted into something I had never seen on my child. "You're a fool," she hissed. "A stupid, weak old man. Just like you've always been, you'd believe anyone over your own family. You poisoned your mother, Janelle." She raised her hand. I saw it coming. She was going to hit me. Her own father, Miss Briggs. Detective Roa stepped out from behind the nurse's station. 2 uniformed officers flanked him. "We have a warrant for your arrest. Attempted murder by poisoning. Fraud, please turn around." She fought them. She screamed. She called me every name I'd ever heard and some I hadn't. She said she'd never forgive me. She said I'd die alone. She said I was nothing. The elevator doors closed on her voice and the hallway went silent, and that silence was the loudest thing I have ever heard. Spencer was released that evening. I was sitting in the lobby when he walked through the front doors. He looked like a man who hadn't slept in days. His shirt was wrinkled. The bruise on his jaw had turned purple. He was carrying a plastic bag with his wallet and keys. He saw him and stopped. He didn't speak. He just waited. I stood up. My knees cracked. I felt every one of my 63 years. Spencer, I was wrong. About everything. About you. I am so sorry. He looked at me for a long time. Then he said something that broke me open. You know the worst part? I was going to tell you myself. I had a letter written. I was going to mail it to you and Marlene in Savannah. I just wanted someone to know. I was so tired of carrying it alone. The trial was 4 months later. The evidence was overwhelming. Katrina Vega had pulled every transaction, every hidden credit card, every fraudulent claim. The clonazepam found in Marlene's system matched Janelle's prescription exactly. Dwight Hollins testified that Spencer's car was gone the entire morning. A security camera from the house across the street confirmed it. Spencer had been at his office, logged into his work computer, verified by his firm's IT department. He wasn't even in the house. Janelle's lawyer tried to paint Marlene as a manipulative woman who had hoarded wealth while her daughter suffered. He tried to paint Spencer as controlling. He tried to paint me as the kind of man who would turn against his own child. Some of it stung because some of it had a grain of truth. Marlene did hide money. I did judge Spencer unfairly, but the jury saw through it. Guilty on all counts, 8 years. When they read the verdict, Janelle didn't scream. She didn't cry. She just closed her eyes and let out a long breath, like she was finally exhaling a lie she'd been holding for years. They let her out in handcuffs. She didn't look at me. We sold the house in Charlotte. Marlene didn't want to see it again. We sold our house in Savannah too. Too many ghosts. We bought a small single-story place outside Asheville. No stairs. Marlene still gets dizzy sometimes from the effects of the overdose. The doctor says it might be permanent. Some damage you can't undo. Spencer lives with us. He has the back bedroom, the one that looks out on the garden. He lost his job during the investigation. He lost his wife. He lost 3 years of savings here he'd poured into covering her debts. He had nothing left, but he had us. He helps Marlene with her exercises every morning. He cooks dinner most nights. He found a new job at a small accounting firm in town. On weekends, he and I work in the garden. We don't talk much. We don't need to. We're two men who walked through the same fire and came out the other side. I told him something last month while we were stacking firewood. I told him why I never liked him. It wasn't you, I said. It was me. My father was a firefighter too, but he was soft. He let people walk over him. He let the department use him up and throw him away. He smiled through it. He never fought back. I swore I'd never be like him. And when I looked at you, at the way you just absorbed everything, Janelle threw at you without a word. I thought you were weak. I thought you were my father all over again. Spencer set down a log and looked at me. I wasn't weak, Carlton. I was drowning. I know that now, I said. What I called weakness was the strongest thing I've ever seen. You held my daughter's life together with your bare hands for 3 years, and you never asked for credit. You never complained. You just kept showing up. He nodded once. We went back to stacking wood. Marlene and I sat down together and had the conversation we should have had 17 years ago. She told me about her sister Loretta's money. She told me why she hid it. Her father had been a spender. Not a gambler exactly, but a man who could not hold onto a dollar. He bought things to feel alive. He bought things to fill some hole that nothing could fill. He spent her mother into poverty, then left and never came back. Marlene grew up learning that money in the wrong hands was a weapon. So when Loretta's insurance payout came, Marlene froze. She couldn't tell me. She was afraid it would change us. She was afraid it would change our daughter. She was right about that last part. The $900,000 is now the Briggs Powell Family Trust. It funds 3 programs in North Carolina for families dealing with compulsive spending and financial addiction. Spencer is on the board. He reviews every application. He knows what to look for. He lived inside the storm for 3 years. He knows the difference between someone who wants help and someone who's running a news scheme. A letter came last week. Plain white envelope. State Correctional Facility return address. Marlene saw it in my hand and went still. I opened it. Janelle's handwriting, pressed so hard the pen nearly tore through the paper. She called us thieves. She called Marlene a snake. She called Spencer a con man who had stolen her life. She said she was counting the days. She said when she got out, she was coming for everything. I read it out loud, all of it. No secrets, not anymore. Then I walked to the fireplace and held the letter over the flame. Marlene put her hand on my arm. Spencer stood on my other side. She hasn't learned a thing, Marlene whispered. No, I said, she hasn't. But we have. I let go. The paper caught. The ink turned black, then gray, then nothing. The smoke curled up the chimney and disappeared into the cold Carolina sky. She can't hurt us anymore, I said. And standing there with my wife and the man who had become my son, watching the last ember wink out, I knew it was true. Not because we were stronger, not because we were smarter, but because we had finally stopped protecting the lie and started protecting each other. 2 months ago, we went to the first annual meeting of the trust. It was held in a church basement in Asheville. Folding chairs, bad coffee, fluorescent lights that hummed just like the ones in the hospital. A young woman stood up and told the room that 18 months ago she had maxed out 11 credit cards, forged her husband's signature on a home equity loan, and nearly lost custody of her children. She said the counseling program funded by our trust was the reason she still had a family. She looked right at us. She didn't know our story. She just knew someone had written a check. "I don't know who you are," she said, her voice shaking, "but you saved my life." Spencer reached over and took Marlene's hand. Marlene reached over and took mine. We sat there in that cold basement, three broken people held together by something stronger than blood. And for the first time in a long time, the silence between us wasn't heavy. It was just peace. Here is a powerful lesson we can learn from this story. This story teaches us that the people we rush to defend are not always the ones who deserve it, and the ones we dismiss may be the ones quietly holding everything together. It shows how prejudice and pride can blind us to the truth, and how secrets, even those born from love, can become poison when they're kept too long. But most importantly, it reminds us that real family is not built on blood alone. It is built on honesty, sacrifice, and the courage to face the hardest truths about the people we love. What would you have done if the person you trusted most turned out to be the one destroying your family? Let us know your thoughts in the comments and tell us where you are listening from.